Freeze warnings from Louisiana up to New York, and right behind this, an Arctic blast that could break more than 100 records. Also playing out as we come on the air tonight, the deadly highway explosion, several dead. Traffic backed up for miles on the interstate. There is major news tonight in the impeachment showdown after Republicans argued, why is this behind closed doors? Tonight, President Trump saying these hearings should not be on TV. And the other phone call he now says he might release. Also, the president's former national security advisor, John Bolton, his attorney, now signaling he knows plenty about meetings and conversations on Ukraine. The middle school plot, authorities say 3 middle school students are charged, allegedly planning to kill fellow students and teachers. New developments tonight, the search for that missing college student this evening, the suspect now under arrest, found in the woods. What could be a major breakthrough tonight in the search for what's causing the vaping illness epidemic. The CDC now believes it's found the specific ingredient, the common thread for so many patients. The deadly chemical accident inside a restaurant involving a powerful cleaning agent, an employee trying to help get rid of it all, collapsing and dying. Images coming in now, the major train derailment tonight, and the American speed skater under arrest tonight after an alleged assault on a plane. The plane then forced to make an emergency landing.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Friday night. We'll get to it all, but we begin tonight with that major storm and then a second system tonight that could bring in record cold right behind this. Dangerous driving from more than a foot of snow already in parts of Michigan, the first heavy snow of the season in Erie, Pennsylvania. And a dangerous fire in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Firefighters there battling the flames in single-digit wind chills. Tonight, freeze warnings from Louisiana up through New York. And as I mentioned there, right behind this, what could be record cold. ABC's Stephanie Ramos leading us off tonight.
Tonight, behind that powerful storm that covered roads with more than half a foot of snow, the coldest air of the season is now pouring into the lower 48 states.
Current gusts in Philadelphia, 22 miles per hour, so it feels even colder when you factor that on in.
In the Philadelphia area, it feels more like January than November. Temperatures 20 degrees below normal.
It's cold. I'm not ready for this.
Too much, too cold, too fast.
In Eau Claire, Wisconsin, a massive fire breaking out at this eye clinic Thursday evening. Single-digit wind chills there, making for some tough conditions for firefighters.
We have been putting out salt and sand and things like that to try to keep the surfaces from being too slippery while we're trying to fight the fire.
That same system bringing heavy rain and slick roads to the south. In Talladega County, Alabama, this vehicle ending up in the median of Highway 280, its front end smashed. Now they're bracing for their first freeze. Here in New York, it's going to feel like 19 degrees in the morning. Officials here have declared a code blue, opening up shelters for the homeless. And David, this is just the beginning. An even colder blast of air is moving in next week. David.
So let's get more on that, Stephanie. Thank you. Let's get right to senior meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it from Atlanta tonight, where they're under a freeze warning as well. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. Anything but hot Atlanta here. We're under a freeze warning, and this round of cold is nothing like what's to come, as Stephanie alluded to. Look at these numbers in the morning. Freeze warnings from North Carolina all the way to northeast Louisiana, and it'll feel like the teens in New York to Chicago. So a cold Saturday, no doubt about that. The next round will have some snow preceding it. Could be a mess in Detroit. Back through Denver and Chicago during the day on Monday. Then on Tuesday, mostly rain, we think, along I-95, but we have more confidence in the amount of cold coming down with this next one. It's going to feel like below zero from places like Green Bay and Minneapolis, and the heaters are definitely humming here in Atlanta. David?
Rob Marciano, great to have you. You saw the dangerous driving from the storm system. We're also following another scene late this afternoon, a deadly collision and explosion on the interstate. This is I-35, a major highway north of Dallas. Multiple vehicles involved, including an 18-wheeler carrying propane tanks. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore from Texas.
Tonight, this massive inferno erupting on a major highway in North Texas. An 18-wheeler carrying tanks exploding. You can hear the sound of propane escaping from the ruptured tanks. The fire department confirming 3 people killed and at least 3 others hurt. The crash involving 2 18-wheelers and 4 vehicles. Thick black smoke billowing into the sky as emergency crews scramble to contain the out-of-control flames. Firefighters on the scene in Denton spraying down the charred cab of a truck. Some of the tanks seen scattered across the highway. And you can even see a burned-out car next to the truck. The multi-vehicle crash shutting down Interstate 35 in both directions for hours, leaving miles of traffic. Tonight, investigators are trying to figure out what caused the crash. And some of the lanes have reopened, but traffic is still a major issue tonight, and authorities are telling us that speed is a factor they're looking into. David?
Marcus Moore from Texas. Marcus, thank you. Major news tonight in the impeachment showdown after Republicans have been arguing about the inquiry, saying, why is this behind closed doors? Tonight, President Trump saying these hearings should not be on TV. And President Trump today on another phone call that he had with Ukraine's president. He now says he might release that call as well. And all of this as the president's former national security advisor, John Bolton, his attorney, now signaling that Bolton knows plenty about meetings and conversations on Ukraine. ABC's Terry Moran tonight at the White House.
For weeks, President Trump and Republicans blasted Democrats for holding impeachment hearings behind closed doors. But now that the public hearings will begin next week, Trump is far from satisfied.
Well, they shouldn't be having public hearings. This is a hoax. This is just like the Russian witch hunt. This is just a continuation.
The president insisting he's got nothing to worry about.
I'm not concerned about anything. The testimony has all been fine. I mean, for the most part, I never even heard of these people. I have no idea who they are. All that matters is one thing, the transcript.
But the witnesses to Trump's dealings with Ukraine may matter too. And today, John Bolton, his former national security advisor, made clear he's got something to say. In a letter sent to Congress, Bolton's lawyer says his client was personally involved in many of the events, meetings, and conversations that investigators have already heard about, as well as many relevant meetings and conversations that have not yet been discussed. Bolton wants a court to resolve whether he should follow White House instructions not to testify or obey Congress's subpoena. But Democrats are moving fast, releasing today another transcript from a key witness, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a Ukraine expert inside the White House. Vindman, who was on that call between Trump and the president of Ukraine, was asked if he had any doubt Trump was asking for investigations of his political opponents. There was no doubt, Vindman said. President Trump, even as he proclaims that call to be perfect, is also distancing himself from key witnesses, like his ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, a Trump loyalist who raised $1 million for the Trump campaign in 2016, and who the president once called a really good man and a great American. Now that Sondland has testified Trump was seeking a quid pro quo with Ukraine, here's what the president says about him.
Let me just tell you, I hardly know the gentleman.
Terry Moran live in Washington tonight. Terry, the president was also pressed today about another phone call with Ukrainian's President Zelensky, and the president said he might release the transcript of that call too.
President Zelensky, right after Zelensky was elected in April, and the president says he might release the call. He says he might hold back because with other world leaders, he doesn't want them to think every one of their calls would get released. But he did say, quote, "I'm very transparent. Nobody is more transparent than I am." David?
Terry Moran up on the Hill tonight. Terry, thank you. And President Trump also making news tonight with his reaction now to news that former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg might enter the presidential race. He's taken steps now. The former mayor and billionaire had sharp words for then candidate Trump, and tonight the president already firing back even before Bloomberg officially decides whether he's running. Here's ABC's chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
President Trump today dismissed the prospects of a presidential campaign by fellow New York billionaire Michael Bloomberg, offering up a familiar nickname.
He doesn't have the magic to do well. He will not do very well. And if he did, I'd be happy. There is nobody I'd rather run against than little Michael, that I can tell you.
Sources close to Bloomberg say he is considering a run in part out of fear Democrats may nominate Elizabeth Warren, who he believes would have a tough time beating Donald Trump. For her part, Warren suggested Bloomberg would try to buy the election.
I don't think that big money ought to be able to buy our elections.
Bloomberg's move comes amidst concerns that former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign is losing momentum.
I have no problem with him getting in the race. And in terms of he's running because of me, last polls I looked at, I'm pretty far ahead.
Meanwhile, the Washington Post obtained a copy of the upcoming book by Anonymous, the official who wrote the op-ed in the New York Times last year about a so-called resistance in the Trump administration. Anonymous claims several senior officials considered a, quote, midnight self-massacre, resigning en masse to sound an alarm about President Trump's behavior. An idea rejected, the book claims, because it would cause even more chaos. According to the Washington Post, the author also describes Trump acting like a 12-year-old in an air traffic control tower, pushing the buttons of government indiscriminately, indifferent to the plane skidding across the runway and the flights frantically diverting away from the airport. The White House calls the author a coward and the book a work of fiction.
Let's get to Jonathan Karl live at the White House and back to the race for 2020 now. John, any indication when Bloomberg might make his decision official?
David, all indications are that Michael Bloomberg has already decided to run for president. His advisors say he is already in the process of getting on the ballot in all 50 states. An official announcement is expected within the next few weeks. David?
Less than a year until the presidential election. John Karl tonight, thank you. We turn next year to an alleged plot to attack a middle school in upstate New York. Authorities say they stopped a credible threat, in their words, by 3 students who they say were planning to use explosives and firearms to kill students and teachers. Here's ABC's Diane Macedo.
Tonight, 3 middle schoolers are facing criminal charges in upstate New York after police say they plotted an attack on their own school.
The plan was to enter the middle school with explosives, incendiary devices, and firearms to kill and injure students and staff.
Police say it started as a reported threat from one student to another at Albion Middle School near Rochester. They immediately launched a full investigation.
Numerous searches were conducted and several legally possessed firearms, electronic evidence, and other supporting material was seized.
Investigators tonight say they're thankful someone spoke up.
Because of the initial report of a threat to a student, lives were saved and this tragedy was averted.
Those students, all under 16, are charged with conspiracy. Authorities are telling the community there the school is safe. David?
All right, Diane, thank you. And there has been an arrest tonight in the disappearance of Alabama college student Anaya Blanchard, a suspect discovered in the woods, and tonight now charged with kidnapping her. A tip led them to this scene, pulling the suspect from that wooded area. And here tonight, ABC's Steve Osunsami now.
With a swollen eye, the man authorities are calling a suspect in the disappearance of this missing college student appeared today in a Florida court and agreed to return to Alabama to face charges.
I understand my rights.
29-year-old Ibrahim Yazid was arrested here near the Florida-Alabama state line early this morning. U.S. Marshals found him after receiving a confidential tip.
He saw that. Mr. Yazid then took off running, jumped over a guardrail into a kind of a marshy area.
19-year-old Anaya Blanchard hasn't been seen since this security camera recorded these images at a convenience store on October 23rd. Police say that this is Yazid at the same store at the same moment. In an affidavit, they say that a witness identified Yazid as the individual he observed forcing Blanchard into a vehicle against her will and then leaving with her in the vehicle. Investigators say that blood evidence discovered on the passenger side was indicative of someone suffering a life-threatening injury. At this point, Yazid is charged with first-degree kidnapping. Police have not yet found the young woman. David?
All right, Steve Osunsami, thank you. And next this Friday night, what could be a major breakthrough involving the severe lung illness linked to vaping. The CDC tonight now identifying vitamin E acetate as a very strong culprit, in their words, a common threat in many cases. Here's ABC's Will Reeve.
Tonight, after 39 deaths, a possible breakthrough in solving the vaping mystery. Federal officials announcing today that for the first time, they've found a common suspect in the damaged lungs of patients. Vitamin E acetate. It's sometimes used to dilute THC oil, the active ingredient in marijuana that produces a high. When inhaled, it can affect how the lungs work. One scientist says it's like honey. The CDC calling it a very strong culprit of concern, saying it found the substance in all 29 lung samples tested. More than 2,000 people have gotten sick in the outbreak, including 15-year-old Zane Martin.
It's very bad. Don't vape unless you want to end up in the hospital.
This as the White House considers banning certain flavors popular with teens and raising the age to buy vaping products to 21. On Thursday, Juul Labs, the nation's largest e-cig company, announced it would stop selling mint-flavored pods.
David, the CDC says more testing is needed, and it's too soon to say whether vitamin E acetate is causing the illnesses, but it's clear this is an important clue in solving the mystery. David?
Will Reeve with us tonight. Will, thank you. And there is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Friday. News coming in tonight about Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak undergoing emergency surgery. Also, the deadly chemical